everyone. Welcome to the Glow Podcast. I'm here today with a very exciting guest. I have Ross here, and we are going to be talking about some really fun things. But before we get started, if you are new here, we are Tailored Marketing. We partner with organizations in health, wellness, and longevity space to fuel growth through strategic marketing and sales strategies. So if you are interested, drop a comment below. Ross, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited to have you here. If you would, I would love if you would just go ahead and give a little bit of an introduction so the listeners know who you are.
Sure. Well, my original profession was as a pharmacist. I'm now a recovering pharmacist and no longer counting pills any longer. But along the way, I used my background in science and biochemistry and physiology and anatomy that I got when I got my degree in pharmacy. I got interested in health. And I realized all this scientific background allowed me to understand science-related things related to health, and it's been making sense ever since. And so over the last 20 or 30 years, I've continually evolved into more focus on anti-aging, life extension, regenerative medicine, and I'm currently the scientific director with Essential Formulas, which is based in Dallas, and we market premium probiotics. And so this has allowed me to get really deeply into the gut microbiome and probiotics and prebiotics and postbiotic metabolites. So that'll be our primary topic today. Just to start things off, Taylor, I'll tell our viewers that in June of 2019, I wrote an article that was published in a medical journal titled Biotic Metabolites, the New Frontier in Microbiome Science. And that's the first time there was ever an article that was published in the scientific literature with the term postbiotic metabolites in the title. So this is a topic and a scientific venue that I'm really involved in promoting and educating people about. And so what we're learning is that the job of your probiotic bacteria is to break down components in the food you supply them with and produce these compounds called postbiotic metabolites. So it's really not the probiotic bacteria that regulate your health, it's the compounds the bacteria create, these postbiotic metabolites. And it turns out there are probably thousands of these compounds, and they work in many different ways. They have a wide range of biological and physiological effects. And one of the ways I express the importance of this is that I do an analogy between Mission Control Center at NASA, which controls everything related to a space flight. Well, your gut microbiome controls everything related to your health. It's mission control for your health regulation throughout your entire body. So these postbiotic metabolites don't just regulate the microbiome ecosystem in your gut. They get absorbed systemically, and you've got a gut-brain axis, and a gut-liver axis, and a gut-kidney axis, and a gut-skin axis. These postbiotic metabolites are helping regulate everything throughout your body. So where do you get these postbiotic metabolites?
Yeah.
So it all has to do with food. The two types of food that probiotic bacteria require for their health and for them to be able to multiply and proliferate and ultimately produce these postbiotic metabolites are dietary fibers and polyphenols. Now, if listeners aren't familiar with polyphenols, they're a huge class of compounds. There's thousands of them that have been structurally identified. They're the compounds basically that give color to fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
And so one of the problems is that people don't consume a plant-based diet enough. Fruits and vegetables are the primary source of dietary fibers and polyphenols, and I've got multiple studies that have been published that say from 90 to 95% of American children and adults do not consume adequate amounts of dietary fibers and polyphenols. So consequently, because of bad diets, nobody or almost everybody is not feeding their gut microbiome the foods they need for the bacteria, the probiotic bacteria, to thrive and proliferate. And so consequently, most people have some degree of what we call dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is a term that really just determines or relates to bacterial or microbial imbalance. Too many bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria. Now, a healthy gut microbiome should contain roughly about 85 to 90% beneficial probiotic bacteria and only 10 to 15% potentially bad bacteria. When Everybody harbors some bacteria that could be bad, but when they only exist in small numbers, they don't create problems. It's only when you get out of balance and the bad bacteria become too large in their numbers, then you've got problems. And the reason bad bacteria are bad is that they secrete compounds that are highly inflammatory. So they inflame the gut lining, they break down the tight junctions in your epithelial cells that line your gastrointestinal tract, which then allows leaky gut or intestinal permeability to happen, and then you got harmful things leaking into your systemic circulation, which cause inflammation throughout your body. And the medical community has created a new term, inflammaging, linking inflammation and the aging process.
Yeah.
So I think this problem of gut dysbiosis and bacterial imbalance is one of the primary factors that's responsible for the declining health of humanity.
Yeah.
When I was in high school back in the 90s, we didn't have an epidemic of cancer and heart disease and high blood pressure and metabolic syndrome, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, autism, ADHD. All these things now are reaching epidemic proportions. So the health of mankind is declining. Just within the last 50 to 70 years, there's been a substantial increase in all these chronic age-related diseases. And now we find out that there are studies that link virtually all chronic degenerative diseases, age-related diseases, to gut dysbiosis. So this bacterial imbalance that creates leaky gut and allows for system-wide inflammation is really a central cause or driver of accelerated biological aging.
Yeah. Wow. And how do we kind of like with that inflammation, how do we combat that? I know you mentioned the fruits and vegetables.
Thank you for asking that question. So when people have this dysbiosis, bacterial imbalance, too many bad bacteria, and there's a multitude of reasons why people get out of balance in their gut microbiome. Antibiotics, bad diets, environmental toxins, all these things can contribute to bacterial imbalance. And the thing that I am almost rabid about is that people mistakenly think they can take high-dose probiotics to correct these problems. That is an unfortunate misunderstanding. And I wrote a short article that I think I sent you the link. You can post in the show notes for our listeners. My article titled The Oral Probiotic Dilemma. And this provides people with a scientific explanation for why orally ingested probiotics really don't work. One of the main reasons is stomach acid. Stomach acid is anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times stronger acidity than the acid level in the small intestine in the colon. Stomach acid is the front line of our immune system. It's designed to kill. And when people take oral probiotics, they encounter stomach acid and they get decimated. And even if they're enteric coated and they survive transit through the stomach acid, when they reach the colon, they have to have access to dietary fibers and polyphenols to start the process of converting them into postbiotic metabolites. But as I mentioned earlier, 90 to 95% of American children and adults are not consuming adequate amounts of dietary fibers and polyphenols or plant-based foods, fruits and vegetables. So when probiotic bacteria reach the colon, and really I want to emphasize, the colon is really the site of the microbiome. Okay. Over 99% of the bacteria that reside in your gastrointestinal tract reside in the colon. So that's really the site of the microbiome. And it's been documented that anywhere from 70 to 80% of the immune cells in the body reside in the gastrointestinal tract. So if you have bacterial imbalance, one of the first things that suffers is your immune system.
Yeah.
And so that's, as you can see, this whole process starts to unravel, and you start to have different health problems and accelerated biological aging, back to the fundamental core of dysbiosis and not having a healthy gut microbiome. Yeah. So you ask, how do you correct this? There's two things you can do. One is focus on a healthy diet. Food is really the answer.
Yeah.
And the second thing you could do is take Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. So that's my company's product. I want to explain it and explain why it is so unique and so different than all the other commercial probiotic products on the market.
Yeah.
Dr. Ohhira's is made in Japan. My company and Michael Shore, who founded our company, got Dr. Ohhira's blessing to have the the exclusive rights to import this product from Japan and market it in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So Dr. Ohhira's is a food-based fermented probiotic. It's made in a multi-year fermentation process. There's big 80-gallon fermentation vats, and they start by using a wide range of Japanese fruits and vegetables and mushrooms and seaweed. So we got a diversity of different types of foods and 13 starter strains of bacteria in these fermentation vats. And then the bacteria get to ferment and digest the foods for 3 years before the final product is encapsulated.
Wow.
At the end of that 3-year fermentation process, there's over 500 of these postbiotic metabolites that have been created. So that's what we call the Dr. Ohhira's difference. So when they encapsulate this product, there are some probiotic bacteria, there's some of the prebiotics, but the bulk of the product are these postbiotic metabolites that the bacteria have created during the multi-year fermentation process.
Okay.
So one thing I want to emphasize here, I do a little analogy between temperature on planet Earth and the acidity in your gut microbiome. Temperature is a critical regulator of the ecosystem for plants and animals and humans. In the gut microbiome, the key regulator of the environmental ecosystem is the level of acidity. And the optimal acidity in your gut microbiome is anywhere from pH level 6.2 to 6.8, which is just weakly acidic.
Okay.
So my question is, how do people get and how do people create this weakly acidic acid-base level in the gut microbiome, which is the optimal level to promote the growth of your probiotic bacteria, and it suppresses the growth of pathogens? Well, it turns out that in Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, there's over 100 weakly acidic postbiotic metabolites. There's short-chain fatty acids and organic acids and nucleic acids and amino acids and fulvic acids. All of these acidic postbiotic metabolites help to reestablish the slightly acidic gut microbiome so that this is the optimal environment for your probiotic bacteria to thrive.
Yeah.
So that's why Dr. Ohhira's is so unique and so different from all the other products in the world, because we're not delivering massive amounts of probiotics, and Americans tend to think that more is better, so this is competition. My probiotic is 10 billion, mine's got 100 billion, mine's got 200 billion. These orally ingested probiotics, for the most part, don't work. And even if some of them are acid stable and survive transit through the stomach, when they reach the colon, it's like entering a food desert. People aren't consuming the types of food that support a healthy gut microbiome.
Yeah.
So there's a 2-step process for improving the health of your gut microbiome. One is to increase your ingestion of a diversity of different types of plant-based foods, and the other is take Dr. Ohhira's probiotics.
Yeah.
Now, Taylor, I want to emphasize diversity here. And again, I do a little analogy between, in this case, the gut microbiome and the Amazon rainforest, 2 of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet. In the Amazon, there are thousands of different types of insects and birds and reptiles and mammals and fish and in the waters and so forth. All of these types of animals require different types of food.
Yeah.
It's the same in your gut microbiome. A healthy gut microbiome is anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 different species of bacteria. They have different types of DNA. You have to feed them different types of food. So Dr. Ohhira's probiotics fermentation process, there's 14 different types of foods in these fermentation vats. But I ask people, how many different types of fruits and vegetables do you eat a day? Most of people have meat and potatoes and maybe a serving of beans or a serving of green beans. I mean, that's just one. You have to understand that every time you eat, you're hosting a very large party. You're feeding 100 trillion guests, the bacteria in your gut microbiome. So I try to get people to understand the importance of eating a little bit of as many different types of foods, fruits and vegetables a day as possible. I encourage all of our listeners to watch my 8-minute YouTube video that's titled Ross's Salad Buzz. I teach people how to make a salad. My salad buzz has got 16 different types of vegetables in it. That's the way you create and maintain a healthy gut microbiome. So that's a little bit of background about Dr. Ohhira's and the gut microbiome, but I always emphasize that it's food that creates a healthy gut microbiome. Food
Yeah.
comes first, just like in the Amazon rainforest. The food has to be available in order for the animals to thrive. It's the same in your gut microbiome. You have to consume a healthy diet with a diverse range of different types of foods to support the growth and proliferation of a healthy gut microbiome.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And so, with Dr. Ohhira's postbiotic metabolite, is it food that you're actually eating, like this fermented food, or how is it kind of as a consumer when you're
You're
consuming
right.
it?
Good point to bring out. It is a fermented food probiotic. We
Okay.
know that fermented foods for centuries have provided health benefits. It's because the process of fermentation, the bacteria produce these acidic postbiotic metabolites that suppress the growth of pathogens. That's why fermented foods are preserved so well.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Ohhira's is a fermented food probiotic. Is a product of fermentation, just like fermented foods. When you taste fermented foods, they're a little tangy, little acidic taste. That's these acidic postbiotic metabolites, and that's what Dr. Ohhira's is so famous for.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And so, really, the main difference with it is that obviously it's this postbiotic metabolite, but then also compared to just a typical oral prebiotic you would take that is not going to necessarily get through your stomach lining, the fermented food is definitely going to get through your stomach acid.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The difference is that probiotic bacteria are living organisms, and when they
Yeah.
hit the acid in the stomach, they get decimated. But the postbiotic metabolites are just chemical compounds, and they travel through and get to the colon okay, and then they start to rebuild a healthy gut microbiome. And some of the effects of different types of postbiotic metabolites, many of them have anti-inflammatory characteristics, and when you have dysbiosis, you have an inflamed gut lining, and some of them will help repair the gut lining. Some postbiotic metabolites are antioxidants. Others are neurotransmitters. Serotonin and norepinephrine and acetylcholine are all postbiotic metabolites produced by different species of bacteria. One of the ones I spend a lot of time talking about is glutathione.
Okay.
And we can maybe talk about this in another episode, but glutathione is called the master antioxidant. It is just tremendous. I call it a multitasking compound because there's so many
Okay.
activities. But our company, Essential Formulas, has a line of products that contain a strain of bacteria called Lactobacillus fermentum ME3. This strain of bacteria synthesizes glutathione. So in this case, glutathione is a postbiotic metabolite created by the bacteria Lactobacillus fermentum ME.
Okay.
So just some of the different benefits of these postbiotic metabolites. We're learning more about them all the time because there's so many of these that are just on the cutting edge of microbiome science starting to be discovered. We're learning what bacteria are capable of producing different postbiotic metabolites, what
Yeah.
types of foods and fibers and polyphenols might be the best for a particular strain of bacteria to be able to produce the postbiotic metabolites. This is all a very new area. And one of the things I talk about in some of my presentations is that a paradigm shift is a change in our understanding of science.
Yeah.
And paradigm shifts, for example, a couple of centuries ago, Copernicus suggested that the sun was the center of the universe. And up until that time, people thought the earth was the center of the universe. So it was really a paradigm shift for people to start thinking or believing that the earth wasn't the center of the universe. And it took over a century for
Yeah.
people to understand and believe that. And things like Einstein's theory of relativity and Newton's laws of motion. It took several decades for scientists to study and shift their thinking with this paradigm shifting ideas. Well, postbiotic metabolites is a paradigm shifting idea. People need to keep an open mind and understand that they've been led to believe, and the marketing from probiotic companies leads them to believe that oral probiotics will provide a lot of benefits. For the most part, they're being misled. And so I'm
Yeah.
trying to get the word out about postbiotic metabolites and Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. And essentially, everybody would be healthier if they took Dr. Ohhira's, because very few people are eating the type of diet that really supports a gut microbiome. So almost everybody has some level of dysbiosis, and even small amounts that don't cause any symptoms, you've got an inflammatory response from just a little bit of gut dysbiosis. So
Yeah.
taking Dr. Ohhira's is something that'll help. And actually, let me toss one other comment out for our listeners here. I wrote a paper titled The Microbiome Theory of Aging, which links all of these things together. When you have an unhealthy diet and develop dysbiosis, then this whole sequence of events that results in breaking down the tight junctions in the gut lining, allowing intestinal permeability to happen. We'll post the link to that article so that people who are listening can have access to both of the articles, my Postbiotic Metabolites and my new microbiome theory of aging articles.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I guess, so you were talking a little bit too about this paradigm shift and like even the microbiome. I feel like people weren't talking about this, and you probably know better than I do, but people weren't even talking about the microbiome being as important as it was, or even the word microbiome, probably like 20, 25 years ago. And so what kind of shift, I guess, have you seen even just with people's knowledge of that and our overall health?
Well, I think that you're right. Over the last 20 years or so, there's been a tremendous knowledge-based change about the gut microbiome. More people are familiar with it and understand that it's important. Many people don't understand postbiotic metabolites yet, but the latest statistics I have available, in 2022, Americans spent $17.4 billion on oral probiotic supplements.
Yeah.
Most of that is wasted money, but that just shows you how popular the probiotic segment is. So you
Yeah.
see shelf after shelf after shelf of oral probiotics in health food stores and vitamin stores. So it's a fairly large category, and I just
Definitely.
like to get the word out about postbiotic metabolites. And a lot of manufacturers are now putting one or two prebiotics in their probiotic formulation, and some companies are even putting one or two postbiotic metabolites in so they can get those terms on the label. But
Yeah.
they're missing the point of diversity. It's not just one or two prebiotics, it's the diversity of many of them that helps create and maintain a healthy gut microbiome. And the same with the postbiotic metabolites. One or two could be helpful, but Dr. Ohhira's has over 500 postbiotic
Yeah.
metabolites.
Yeah. So that's what really sets y'all apart from what else is on the market.
Exactly. And if people want more information about this, they can go to the Essential Formulas website, which is essentialformulas.com. And they could also go to my website, which is the Natural Pharmacist, naturalpharmacist.net. And a lot of the articles I've written are posted on my website.
Okay.
And one of the things I say in my bio in my blog is that I'm bilingual, and the two languages that I speak are English and science.
Yeah.
I can talk about these scientific concepts so that non-scientific people can understand them, and I've kind of made a career out of doing that.
Yeah, no, and you do a really good job about making it easier to digest for somebody who maybe isn't as scientific, like myself, who I understand some of the things, but obviously not to the same extent that you do, but you do a really good job of breaking it down so that your everyday person is able to understand this.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah.
That's my job. I'm passionate about this and get excited talking about it, as you can see.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's always good. It's always good to see people passionate about what they are doing. And so you just gave me all of the links that I will need. I will also put those in the show notes as well for easy access for everyone. I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking more about postbiotic metabolites, Dr. Ohhira's special post metabolite, and then I will also put, like I said, all the links in the show notes.
Yeah, and I'll send you the 800 number for Essential Formulas if people would like to call there. Most health food and vitamin stores carry Dr. Ohhira's, but if any store doesn't, you can call Essential Formulas and get some advice.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate your time.
And I appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.